I was sitting in my comfortable armchair with a beer in hand, watching a baseball game on the big screen TV. Life seemed as usual. However, just before 7 p.m., the doorbell rang, and a well-dressed man I didn't recognize stood at the door, claiming to pick up my wife Megan for a date. Welcome to the Love and Betrayed Love channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Alex, as usual, was sitting in his comfortable armchair with a beer in hand, watching a baseball game on the big screen TV and had gone upstairs after dinner. He had no idea what he was doing and he didn't care. As far as he knew. It was simply another night at home. However, just before 7 o'clock p.m. the doorbell rang and Alex called from upstairs. "Alex, could you please get the door?" "Sure." I was planning to do it anyway. He approached the door and opened it to find a well-dressed man he did not recognize. "Yes, can I help you?" "I hope you aren't selling anything." "No, I am here to pick up Megan for what we have a date." Alex's eyes bulged from their sockets. "Do you have a date with my wife, Megan?" "Yes." Alex remained there for a time, trying to decide what to do. "I will call her." "Do you stroll to the bottom of the stairs and shout up, 'Let us see. Your fiancé is here'?" He was expecting her to inquire what day it was or if it was even a date. Instead, she replied, "Tell him I'll be right down." Alex just stood there wondering what was going on. When she entered the living room, she was dressed in a short evening gown with a plunging neckline and plenty of makeup on her face. Alex asked, "Let us see, tell me what the hell is going on." "I am going on a date." Married ladies do not go on dates with anyone except their spouses. "I'm leaving. I'm sick of spending evenings watching you drink beer and stare at curling or some other exciting sport. All I get from you is a burp or a fart, and you no longer apologize for doing it. When is the last time we did something exciting? If you can't give me attention or provide a random opportunity for pleasure, I'll find someone who can." She pressed her index finger into his chest to emphasize, "And now don't wait for me. If I'm lucky I might not be back till the morning." She exited, slamming the door behind her. Megan got into the waiting car and instructed the driver to go. When they were away from the home, he stopped and they both started giggling. Megan commented, "I wish I had a picture of his expression. It was priceless. If that doesn't transform him from a sloth to a normal person, I'm not sure what will. Don't you think this will make him upset and worsen the situation?" "I doubt it. He'll probably sit there and wonder what happened. I'll come back before he gets mad. I doubt he would consider divorce so soon, but I'm ready to take the risk. Maybe I shouldn't have included the part about not being home until tomorrow. Oh well, it's too late now, given how our marriage is going. I'd rather be divorced than continue like this. Damn it, that fool is my favorite person, but I wish he was more concerned about me and us. Oh well, just drive around the block. We'll go back and I'll see how he is doing." Megan and her date drove around the neighborhood before pulling into the driveway and parking. Alex did not hurry out as Megan had intended. She stepped inside and didn't see him in the living room, despite the TV being on. She quickly looked downstairs and then headed upstairs. He was not there. Then she dialed his cell phone. She heard a ring. Megan dashed to locate his cell phone on the nightstand. Next to it was his wedding ring. She took a cursory look around the room. A few of his personal stuff were missing. Oh damn, that's... He dashed downstairs to inform her buddy what had happened and to see whether Alex's car was in the garage. It was gone. A man inquired, "Where do you believe he is?" "He probably went to a pub to drink. At worst he could spend the night in a motel. I can image him pouting like a small child. He will pay for this when he returns and forgets. My joke, on the other hand, is departing. It might be for the best if he feels horrible because I had to go to such efforts to inspire him. I'm fine with allowing him to feel bad for a little longer." Alex did not return or call that night or the next morning later the next day. Megan couldn't take it any longer and called Alex's personal secretary well before he was expected to return from lunch. "Jessica, please connect me to my hubby." "That will not work." "Megan, what the hell is going on?" "Alex came in this morning and instructed me to stop talking and listen. He stated he's taking the day off, since he has a lot of personal affairs to attend to." Then he inquired about who controls the company's medical insurance. I gave him the name of the female from HR who handles medical insurance. That seemed to help him and he didn't want to speak with me anymore. He went without thanking me or saying anything else. That is not like Alex at all. Do you know what became of him? Did a close relative die or something? Whatever happened to him? I pulled a stunt that resulted in some nasty consequences. I'm hoping that as soon as I talk to him and kiss his ass, he will return to normal. Could you please transfer me to the girl at Human Resources? Sure. HR. Lisa is speaking. I would like to talk to Rebecca. She is currently training a new employee. Can someone else assist you? Can you tell me what Alex Strickland did in HR today? I can look into his file, but I will need his permission before providing you with any information. I am his wife. Can you tell me something? I can look into your coverage on his policy. Hold on, let me see. What a coincidence you were going to contact me today. Anyhow, you should receive a formal notice in the mail indicating you are no longer covered by your husband's medical insurance. You can keep your coverage for 180 days after it ends if you repay the outstanding balance. That is the only thing he modified. Megan, surprised, sniffled. I thanked you and hung up. Why did Alex take me off his medical insurance? Then it struck her. She went straight to her computer to check their online bank accounts. Half of the money in both the checking and savings accounts was gone. Oh damn, he is divorcing me. That's he could not decide what to do next. She was deep in concentration when her phone rang. Tom was their life insurance agent and family friend. This is Megan. Hello, Tom. Megan, could you please explain what's going on? Alex came here. Cancel the automatic payments on your life insurance and shift the beneficiary to the daughters. You will not receive any money. Additionally, the automatic withdrawals for life insurance payments were moved to a new account. He stated he is certain this is how he wants it. I'll need to send you an official notice of the beneficiary change and the cessation of your life insurance payment. I apologize. I guess you're splitting up. Let us see. I am sorry about this. Please come and see me as soon as possible, so your life insurance policy does not lapse. Is it true that you two are divorcing? Yes, thank you. I can't say anything else right now, but you haven't told me anything. Yes, she hung up. 2 minutes later. Their lawyer, neighbor and friend Michael called. Megan replied dully. Hello, Megan, I'm Michael. Can you tell me what's happening on? Alex came here and modified his will so that the children get everything while you get nothing. He also took you off the list of people who may be his medical proxy. He refused to tell me why, saying he didn't care whether I informed you or not. He then requested me for a referral to a family lawyer. I suppose you are having major troubles and are thinking about divorce. Listen, I can always reverse everything if you two reconcile. I'm so sad that this is happening, Marilyn, and I think highly of each of you. I have to run now, but best wishes to you both. Megan replied faintly. Okay, the next call came from their twin daughters, who were away at college. Mom, what the hell is going on? Dad branded all of us traitors to you. He said you were dating and sleeping with other men. Then he said he wouldn't be in touch for a while, so you could date other people till your divorce is finalized. He claimed he had taken care of our future education bills. We tried to ask inquiries, but he ignored them. Dad hung up telling us to remember how much Dad loved us. Mom, we're worried that Dad will harm himself. Can you tell us what happened to make him so depressed? I'm the one who made him depressed and I'm trying to find him, so I can apologize. The trouble is that I can't find him. Perhaps I can try hello. I'm receiving another call. Maybe it is him. Call us back hello. Alex, Evelyn, is your mother-in-law? What the hell is going on? My son called me crying like a baby. He mentioned something about you sleeping with a group of men at a nightclub. He appeared inebriated, so I wasn't sure how truthful his story was. All I know is that he was quite upset. Anyway, he stated he'd address the situation by granting you your freedom. The saddest thing was that he praised me as his father for raising him right. Then he apologized for disrespecting his upbringing and disappointing us. He said farewell. I did not like his tone. He hung up before we could ask any further inquiries. He has not returned our calls since. Let us see. I'm frightened he'll do something stupid. What happened with you two? I tried to help Alex get out of his empty nest rut and enjoy life with his wife. I decided to do something crazy to help him get out of his despair. I pretended to be on a date with another man. I was gone for 10 minutes, 10 miserable minutes. When I returned, he was already gone. Today I discovered that he did several things that suggest he intends to divorce me. I'm looking for him to halt this craziness, but I can't reach him to speak with him. Is it your fault that my son intends to commit suicide? Allow me to tell you something. If he dies, I'll hold you personally accountable. Click. Megan could not think straight. She contacted every local hotel and motel. Alex was not named as a guest in any of them. He contacted the police and attempted to file a missing person report, telling them she was afraid he would commit himself. This information made no difference. She would need to wait another day before reporting it. Megan took a sleeping medication to fall asleep, but she considered suicide if Alex died. Fortunately, she knew the code to the safe, which contained Alex's automatic weapon and ammunition. She awoke sluggish and turned on the television news. The local television was airing a live interview from the scene of an accident. This is Lamar Jackson of TV3 News last night. Anders Curve appears to have claimed yet another victim or victims. We are here with Sergeant Cantor of the State Police. Sergeant Cantor, could you please tell us what happened? It appears that a vehicle drove down the cliff. It appears to have bypassed the strongest area of the reinforced guardrails. The motorist was either extremely unfortunate or knew exactly what he was doing, based on the lack of skid marks. It appears that the motorist may have lost consciousness while under the influence of alcohol or drugs, or may have committed suicide. How did you even know an accident had happened? The vehicle traveling in the opposite direction contacted the police. He is here now. The camera cut to a young man. The reporter approached the young man. What is your name? I'm Sean Carpenter. Am I on television? I just want to say hello to my mom. Hello, Mom. He beamed ear to ear. See. Please tell us what you witnessed. I was going home when I noticed this large truck approaching me. It swerved slightly and crossed into my lane. When I pressed the brakes, the car veered to the right, hit the guardrail and fell off the edge. Could you describe the truck? Sure, it was a red Ford F-150, possibly a 2019 model. It had a Western Kentucky Hilltopper decal on the back window. Have you seen who was driving? No, the truck's headlights were turned on and I only saw a glimpse of the driver. Do you resemble a man? I don't believe there were any passengers. That is all I know. Thank you, Sergeant Center. Have you contacted for assistance in finding the truck that smashed through the guardrail? Well, we don't know exactly what broke through the guardrail. We assumed it was a truck. Mr. Carpenter reported from here. It's impossible to tell what it is. We have a search and recovery team for the mountains, but they are now doing searches and rescues elsewhere in the state. I'm not sure when they'll be able to get down there and check, but what if there's someone alive who requires medical attention? Then you'd be witnessing an actual miracle. No normal human could withstand such a fall upon those rocks. I wouldn't risk the lives of folks who aren't properly trained to attempt an expedition only to find out. We just need to wait for the mountain rescue crew. Megan did not have to wait to figure out what had happened or who had died. She started crying as soon as they mentioned the red Ford F-150 with a decal. She ignored the ringing phone. She had been crying alone for 3 hours before the twins arrived. When she did not answer their call, they became concerned and rushed home to be with her. Their grandma had called to inform them about the red F-150 that had been on television. Despite the absence of a body, they were almost positive that their father had crashed. The older twin answered her mother's phone call and handed it to her. The caller ID showed the name of a law company. "Hello, I'm Megan Strickland." She couldn't say her last name because she was crying so hard. "Mrs. Strickland, my name is Daniel Thompson. I am a lawyer at the same firm where your acquaintance Michael works. Your husband hired me to represent him in the divorce proceedings. I definitely shouldn't call you, but Michael pushed me to. Riverton police from Caldwell County called me. They were called to the scene of a robbery. The person engaged sustained a brain injury. His wallet and keys had been stolen. He was brought to the emergency room and then into surgery. The unknown person was placed in a coma to ease pressure on his brain. He simply had a motel room key. They tracked it back to Alex Strickland. Among the papers in his hotel room is a copy of the divorce agreement which made me liable for his divorce procedures. That is why they phoned me. Your husband asked me to manage the divorce because he didn't want you to interact with him personally in any manner. I must inform you that you were not permitted to visit him in the hospital. I made my decision based on Mr. Strickland's very explicit verbal instructions regarding his connection with you. However, your children are welcome to visit him. When I have the final word on visitor access, what is my hubby of sure I can see him? I really apologize, but the directive he signed only applies to me the right to make decisions about his divorce and medical treatment. I must follow his final vocal instructions. If you want to employ a lawyer to fight this, do so right away. Isn't the divorce proceeding stalled because of his condition? No. I was given specific instructions to pursue the divorce no matter what. However, I doubt he anticipated being robbed. Does this mean that all of his financial, insurance and beneficiary decisions will not be reversed? Yes. He fulfilled all of those actions and I have no proof that he wants them reversed. Of course there is no evidence. He is in a coma. This is simply ludicrous. I misled my spouse into thinking I was out on a date with another man. When I returned to inform him, it was a joke. He had already gone. I couldn't tell him it was a joke because he had given up his cell phone. There are no grounds for divorce and no explanation for his behavior in response to the joke. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but that's what you're saying. Now I must obey Mr. Strickland's instructions, which he reaffirmed in writing. I have no other options. I hate to tell you this, but you will be served at work tomorrow, as requested by Mr. Strickland. Once you've hired a lawyer, have them contact me to discuss the next step. I do not care. He is my husband and I will see him if I want. I failed to explain that the mail you'll get contains a restraining order forcing you to keep at least 300 m away from him. The petition he offered is quite generous. He mentioned that he wants you to have a chance with the man you actually desire. Now that he had informed the children what the lawyer had stated, it was impossible to believe what had occurred. Megan stated that she would go to the hospital. Regardless of what they said, the females agreed to join her. It did not take long. The hospital did not have a copy of the restraining order, but visits were not permitted due to COVID limitations on all patients. They explained that once he was moved to the ICU, he could only have one visitor for 10 minutes every 2 hours. Megan and the daughters returned home dissatisfied by the time Alex was transferred to the ICU. The restraining order had already been issued. One daughter could pay him a visit, but it was of little service. He was unconscious and they had no way of knowing if he understood what they said. A few days later, the mountain search and rescue team discovered the truck. It was presumed that the robber was the deceased driver. Alex's wallet was present, but several hundred of the 6,000 were missing. This was most likely due to the few bottles of rare Kentucky bourbon found, one of which was more than half empty. Megan's financial situation worsened over time. Alex had failed to deposit his paycheck into the couple's joint account, which was used to pay their mortgage and other payments. Megan did hire a lawyer who filed a court request granting her access to half of the remaining funds in the account. Finally, it was time to bring Alex out of his drug-induced slumber and wake him up. When he awoke, he said he had no idea who he was. The diagnosis was transient amnesia. Rachel, one of the twins, brought photos and recounted stories to help him remember. All attempts were in vain. In his current state, he couldn't remember the lawyer who had his power of attorney. He was not properly informed to have the restraining order lifted. When Alex awoke from the coma, he was given a memory test to see if he had amnesia. Alex knew what they were doing and chose to pretend. He was informed that his girls wanted to see him. Sarah, the other twin, was the first to see him. He asked her who she was. Sarah: Dad, I am one of your daughters. You were attacked and fell into a coma. We have been waiting for you to wake up. Yes, Rachel: Mom, your wife and I have a wife. Yes, why is she not here? She is not allowed to come. You two had a misunderstanding. A restraining order prohibits her from visiting. My God, does she intend to harm me? No, Dad, she is no threat to you. Were quite upset with her why she feigned to go on a date with another man, before revealing that it was a hoax. You departed and began the divorce procedure. Now that you're awake, you can put a stop to this. How do I know she did not go on the date? She claims she didn't. Did you just say she stated she was going on a date? Yes, but it was a lie. So she lied about going on a date, but now she's admitting she didn't go. I may not remember you or her, but I'm no idiot. I must have taken precautions to safeguard myself. Sorry, miss, but your 10 minutes are up. You'll need to depart now. 2 hours later, his second daughter came. I spoke to you previously. Did I? No, that was Sarah, my twin sister. I'm Rachel, don't you recognize me? I apologize, but not yet. You and your sister are both lovely young women. Were we in good terms? I understand that your mother and I were separated. We were on good terms. Mom pulled a trick on you and you were attacked and injured before she could explain. It was all a joke. You began the divorce proceedings before you found out. You have to stop this, Dad. I do not know what to do. I'm not sure if you are my daughter or not. I'm not sure who my wife is. If I even had a wife, I don't think I should do anything until my memory is restored, if it ever does. Do I have an attorney? You have two. There is one for normal matters and one for divorce. You granted him permission to proceed with the divorce. Maybe talking to him will help refresh my memories. Can you contact him or her and invite them to come see me? Of course, anything to help you restore your memories. Dad, could you please allow Mom to visit you? It is hurting her that she cannot see you and apologize. I don't think I'd feel safe with her. Perhaps later. Hello, Mr. Strickland, I'm Chris Thompson, your family law attorney. Do you remember me? He is everything we discussed confidential, absolutely good. I do not have any amnesia. I'm struggling to decide what to do about the divorce. I recall telling you to give her enough so she could move on without me. That is correct. She was served and retained a lawyer. Do you wish to cancel the agreement and end the divorce? No, can you look into her, stated Nate, and report back to me. I can recruit someone on your behalf if you give me permission to do it. Alex maintained claiming to have amnesia and chatting to his kids, ignoring their pleas to see their mother and end the divorce. He awaited the report from his lawyer. The report came a few days later. The private investigators believe there is insufficient evidence to determine whether or not she attended the date. The man she was with insists nothing happened, but he is married and may be scared to admit the truth. It is up to you to believe her or not. I was frightened of that. Thank you for this information. I believe it is time for me to retrieve my recollection. I want you to proceed with the divorce. Sarah was the only person who heard him mutter her name from memory. Shortly later he told her that memories were coming back, including Megan's betrayal or trick, depending on what you believe. He consented to meet Megan. After hugs and tears, Megan began. Alex, it was a nasty deception to get you to change. Michael and I drove around the block, but by the time we returned, you had already left. How do I know this is true? You can get Michael to come and tell you he was the one who helped me perform the feat. So I have to trust the man you allegedly cheated on me with to convince me you did not cheat on me. Sorry, but that dog will not hunt. I tried calling you, but you had left your phone at home. I waited all night for you, but you never returned. Was anyone present while you waited? Michael stayed for a few hours and then returned home. I'm confident he will recommend you. I waited for your call till the next day when I contacted your office. That's when I discovered you adopted a scorched earth attitude to my fictitious affair. You appeared eager to get rid of me. Why shouldn't I? You informed me directly that you were going to cheat on me. You stated that you wanted another man who was standing directly in front of me in my own home. I was devastated, but only because I loved you. I wanted to provide you what you requested as soon as possible. Furthermore, I no longer wanted to be married to you because you violated our marriage vows. Why prolong the? Let's go ahead and divorce. I do not want a divorce. I never intended to cheat on you and never did I wanted to urge you to fight for me and breathe new life into our marriage. Obviously, I took the wrong approach. Excuse me, please, Alex, put an end to the divorce proceedings and return to our normal lives. I love you. Even if what you said is correct, I still do not believe it. You played a cruel and wicked trick on me. I am not sure whether I want to stay married to a woman who does such things. For the time being, I'm still going through the divorce process and plan to move into my own apartment once I'm out of hospital. Alex, what a waste of money. You have a home and a bed. I'll move to a separate room in the house for a bit, if that is what it takes to get you back. Visiting hours have ended and I want to see my daughters. Megan was led out the room. The twins attempted to bolster their mother's case. Neither of them could explain how long their mother had spent with Michael that night. So that didn't matter to Alex when it was time for his release. He did in fact relocate into an apartment, close his place of employment. The divorce continued until Megan's lawyer insisted on obligatory counseling for them 12 sessions. Alex provided no resistance advice. Let us see you went first. My husband means the world to me. We had a fantastic marriage and raised 2 beautiful daughters together. I believe the emptiness syndrome struck him harder than it did me. I intended to close that gap by spending more time with him and engaging in a variety of activities rather than simply being physically present in the same place. Alex seems to have withdrawn from our marriage. Our sex life remained the same as when we had to schedule sex, when the girls were unlikely to hear. Alex's situation stayed same. I wanted to change things up to urge him to pay closer attention to me. I got a male coworker to join me in what I dubbed shock therapy one evening. I pretended to be on a date with him, my companion, and I drove around the block so I could return and tell Alex it was a joke intended to rekindle his interest in our marriage. When we returned 10 minutes later, he had already left and I didn't get the opportunity to talk to him. I waited until the next day when I called his office and discovered that he had begun the divorce proceedings. A few days later I discovered that Alex had been robbed and was in a coma. When he awoke, he didn't believe my alleged date was a ruse and assumed I was truly planning to see other men. Since then he has been seeking a divorce. I apologize for my mistaken actions and beg him to give me another shot. Alex, could you provide a quick explanation of what happened? She is correct in what she said, although she omitted a few specifics. When her date arrived, she not only told me she was going out with him, despite my reservations, but she also expressed her want to spend the night having sex with him. At that moment I recognized my marriage was over. I assumed it was my responsibility that our marriage had fallen apart. Therefore, I wanted to leave as soon as possible. I left my home with her so she could have the man she desired and I could start over. I took steps to swiftly separate us. I handed a lawyer power of attorney because I didn't want to think about or talk about Megan anymore. I would have given her a generous divorce and moved on with my life. I had no idea I'd be robbed, and I certainly didn't anticipate to wind up in a coma when I awoke from the coma. I couldn't recall who I was. Sometimes I wish I had remained in the coma and not remembered that night. Megan claims she didn't go on the date, but she provides no proof. In my opinion, it's equally likely that she went on the date and slept with that guy. Michael. I believe she just changed her mind after realizing the consequences for her social and financial well-being. Now I'm being asked to believe it was all a joke and to go back to live with a lady who was willing to shatter my heart, even if she was speaking the truth. She is a wife who has shown that she is willing to hurt me anytime she sees fit. How can I live with that? Do I have to be concerned about what awaits me when I return home each evening, a loving wife or an unfaithful one out on a date? It would be cleaner if we divorced. She and Michael can live together and I can try to go on. It appears that we have a lot to talk. Everything was deadlocked until Megan invited Michael into the meeting. Alex, I'd like to apologize for my participation in the hoax. Megan told me that everything would be well. I had severe misgivings when she got into my car. I swear we only drove around the block before heading back to the house. She was astonished to learn that you had left. We spotted your phone in your room and realized you had left it there. I stayed with her and waited for you to return. Most of the time, she complained about what we did and how important you were to her. After a while, I departed. I apologize again. Do you believe me now? Alex's statements sound honest, but perhaps he is just a superb actor. Alex, despite what transpired, it appears that I have no way of proving to you that it was all a joke. I pledge never to pull such a trick on you again. Cannot you just believe me? Let us see, you lied to me that night when you claimed you'd spend the night with Michael, and you say you did nothing. You now claim you are not lying. Next. You want me to trust. You won't do this again. How am I supposed to know where the lie ends and the truth start? It all comes down to trusting Alex. If we want to be together again, you must trust me. If you cannot do so, I will consent to divorce you. The counselor spoke up. I have a suggestion. What about a postnuptial agreement that states that if Megan does this again, you will receive all of the property and the divorce? Would you sign that, Megan? Yes, indeed, Alex. I believe I could try that. Megan approached and hugged him. Alex gradually reintegrated into his marriage with Megan. It took a long time before they shared a bed again. Their interaction was quite delicate. They gradually built a relationship that involved additional trips, joint house projects, visits to their daughters and travel. Their sexual activity had increased after the tragedy. Megan began to feel at ease at home. One day Alex called and told Megan not to make dinner. They seemed to be going somewhere. He needed to hang up quickly, so Megan didn't know why she remembered the reorganization that took place at his workplace as a result of the merger. Megan assumed he had received positive news regarding his position. Alex entered the house after it had been reorganized and headed upstairs right away. I'm changing for the evening, he said on his way. Soon after the doorbell rang, Megan opened the door for a woman who appeared about 10 years younger than them. He stood there. She was quite lovely and dressed professionally. Yes, can I help you? I am here for Alex. We have plans tonight. Megan remembered an incident she'd hoped to forget. She assumed he was finally trying to exact retribution. She came up with an idea. She invited the woman inside. You have a gorgeous home, Mrs. Strickland. Thank you. Excuse me for a second. I need to let Alex know. You're here. She shouted. Alex, your companion is here. His reaction was vague. She imagined he said he'd be down soon. She returned to the woman. Megan was going to ask her a question. When she heard Alex descend the stairs, she determined to take action. Megan put her hands around the woman's throat and proceeded to choke her. Gently, you husband, stealing wench. The woman whom Megan suspected was part of a revenge plot, began to resist. Alex exclaimed. Megan, stop, what the hell is going on? Etsy began laughing this time. I caught you attempting to fool me, what prank? This is my new supervisor following the merger, Elena Bricks. Elena. I am deeply sorry. I'm not sure what got into her. Elena frowned at him. I want to think of my subordinates as regular individuals, both at work and outside of it. If you feel this to be typical, you can leave your new position. I will be in the car waiting for you to drive me back to the hotel. Elena, please give me a chance to explain before making any rash decisions. She stormed out the door. Megan sat on the couch crying. Thanks very much, Megan, just when I thought our marriage was returning to normal. You damaged both our marriage and my work. That is it. I'm leaving to try to rescue my job. I will not be returned. Turning to save our marriage. He went to the automobile. Megan rushed upstairs and slumped on the bed, sobbing, what the hell is going on? What did I do? About 15 minutes later, Alex and Elena returned home. He summoned Megan downstairs. They informed her that she had been pranked. Megan clung to Alex and apologized profusely. Later they went out to eat and drink. Elena described how she was afraid she would get wounded, but Alex's assistance with the prank made it worthwhile. Megan gradually got to the point where she could laugh with them. When Megan and Alex got home, she started to clean up the kitchen before bed. Alex headed upstairs. He realized that his automatic weapon, which he kept locked away, was on Megan's bedside, examined the gun. He discovered a bullet in the chamber and turned the safety off. His heart fell. Here is the next story. Do you believe? This is a story about a harlot. Megan Parker inquired as a group of pyramid financial executives gathered around a bar at Logan International Airport in Boston, waiting for a snowstorm. How about this? I know a conniving woman who flew to Norway once a year for the company's annual meetings and spent the majority of the week on her back with the CEO's son between her legs. She did this for around 20 years and her husband never suspected anything in the office. She was prim and proper, and for 51 weeks of the year, you would have assumed she was the kindest, most conservative and quietest lady you'd ever encountered. But she would travel to Norway for corporate meetings once a year. She didn't believe the rest of us understood what was going on. But come on, woman, when you leave the hotel every night with the same guy and do not return to your room until it's time to shower and change for the next day's meetings. Nobody is foolish, except maybe her hubby, but I suppose you can't really blame him. Why would he expect his virtually perfect wife to go for 1 week every year? I worked with that woman for around 15 years. I left almost 2 years ago. I wonder whether she is still sleeping with him. What was her name? Isabella Green. Yeah, that is it. I bet that unfortunate guy will go to his grave unaware that his wife was cheating on him. Wait a minute. We have a guy in her group named Green. Matthew Jackson whispered to me. Joshua, you don't suppose she's referring about Green's wife? You have met her. She looks like an ice queen, but she's a hot mill. That's the story, Dave. As near as I remember, Joshua Moore spoke to me on the phone. They then talked about another person hooking up, but I knew I needed to call you as soon as I heard it. I hope this is not your Isabella, David Jesus. I truly do, but if it were my wife, I would want to be informed. Thank you, Josh. Really, I mean it. I hope it isn't her either. I told my coworker, hey, could you do me a favor and not tell anyone else if Matthew brings this up again? Just keep the tale as quiet as possible and I'll tell Matthew myself if I have to, but only if necessary. I've worked with Joshua at Pearson for 15 years and I trust him with my children's lives, so I felt he could keep quiet. I also believed he had the narrative straight, which meant I had a world-flipping problem. My wife, Isabella, works in management at Johansson Lott, a Norwegian financial services organization. For the past 23 years she has flown to Norway for a week of corporate meetings as part of the management team. Isabella is traditional, prim and decent, but obviously lovely. But Isabella would never cheat on me. Can she? Megan Parker's words lingered in my head. I guess the poor guy is going to die, never knowing that his wife was cuckolding him, because sitting idly and hoping it wasn't true wasn't an option. This poor bastard was about to find out the truth. Isabella and I have been married 25 years. We met in college and dated for 3 years before getting married. We both work in the financial services industry and have had significant success in our jobs. We have 3 great children. One has graduated from college, one is a junior and the youngest is a freshman. With all the children going to college, we became empty nesters this year. Although it took some adjusting, being alone together again seemed to revive our already strong marriage, or so I thought, until a few minutes ago I was sitting at my office desk analyzing the problem. I really didn't know where to start. Isabella started her employment at Johansson right out of college, about a year before we married. It took her 3 years to gain a spot at the business meetings in Norway, and she's been there every year. Since she normally doesn't speak anything about the meetings, whether before or after, they simply appear to be a necessary evil. In retrospect, she did appear concerned about going while pregnant with our first child, but I figured it was because she was 5 months advanced and beginning to feel uncomfortable. Now, of course, I'm wondering if she was upset because she was pregnant. While visiting her lover, I browsed my Firefox bookmarks and clicked on Johansson's webpage. It was a stunning, fast-paced website befitting one of the world's leading financial institutions. Because that was Isabella's firm, I would occasionally browse it, but until today the only corporate officer I knew was Ryan Stewart. The CEO Stewart had recruited 3 of his family members into the company, 2 sons and a daughter, and I found their images and profiles on the website, as well as those of numerous other top officers. I read the children's bios in chronological sequence, so I came to Ethan Stewart last when I opened his bio and noticed a photo larger than a postage stamp. I nearly choked on my meal as I stared into the faces of my 2 youngest children, Noah and Mia. Holy Isabella is of Norwegian heritage with long blonde hair and bright blue eyes, so I didn't think twice about our last 2 children being blonde and blue-eyed. I never questioned Emma's appearance with brown hair and eyes similar to mine, but when I saw Ethan Stewart's photo, I knew those kids couldn't be mine. I immediately completed the math. The company meeting is normally held in August and both of their birthdays occur in May. No way, I badly needed to talk to someone, but who could I really trust with such a sensitive secret and who had the courage to advise me? Well. Besides, Isabella, my go-to person in instances like these was my father-in-law, George Howard. He'd been my most trusted advisor since my father died when I was in my late 20s. He was a solid man who never imposed himself in any scenario, which made him my life companion. During the few instances I needed to speak with someone other than my wife, but I couldn't go see George, how do you hurt Guy by saying excuse me, sir, but I believe your daughter has been sleeping with someone behind my back for it than 20 years. When I consider the problem, I rapidly realize that I do not have many close personal friends. My favorite bartender served as my next closest counselor. The night manager of a little club near my residence named simply My Place. It was an old-fashioned tavern where I would occasionally stop for a quick drink or 2 or take Isabella for a quick meal on other nights. Over the years, I had developed a good friendship with Ella, the owner's fiery but level-headed daughter. She was a few years younger than me, but she had spent her whole working life at the pub and as a result she had developed an exceptional ability to comprehend people. She'd given me her ideas and suggestions on a variety of topics throughout the years, but never on this scale. I hoped she was up for the challenge, but I wasn't sure I was. I grabbed a couple of personal hours from work and went over to my apartment. I arrived approximately an hour before Ella came on. I sat at the bar just chatting with her father Frank, while I poured a couple of JDS over ice. I hadn't spoken to Jacob in a while, because I rarely arrived to the pub this early and he typically left as soon as his shift ended. This is how you stay married to the same woman for 50 years. He would frequently brag. How's that pretty wife of yours? David Jacob inquired. I suppose I'm lost in deep thought. I didn't hear the question, so Jacob asked it again from a few feet away. This time it was louder. I heard him then, and I believe the majority of the pub did as well. I stammered, unable to answer what should have been a straightforward question. "She's okay, Dad." Sheesh, Ella answered for me, appearing from my left after entering through the staff entrance. "Hello, babe, how are you?" I inquired, as I embraced her in a warm, bear hug. She hugged me strongly and murmured in my ear, "I'm all right, but I have a feeling things aren't going well in David land." I backed away from the hug, stunned. How could she know? I thought to myself. Do you see my expression? Ella sat down on the stool next to me and quietly inquired, "Isn't it, Isabella? What's going on here?" I haven't confirmed anything yet, and it will take time, but I've discovered from a reliable source that she cheated on me and had my back for nearly 20 years. What? How the hell could you not know? Has something like this been going on for years? She expressed shock because she only spends 1 week per year in Norway for her company's corporate meetings. Apparently she has been cheating on the boss's son for the past 25 years, 1 week per year. Oh, she responded. Exactly. I responded, "You can't just do nothing unless you're one of those perverts who enjoy seeing their wife sleep with other men," she said. Awaiting a response, I gave her a pissed look that should have told her all she needed to know, and she carried on. "Girls all throughout the world. What did you ask yourself? Would you be better off with or without her? But that is not how the real world works. David," she began. "If you are the man I believe you are, you cannot live with an unfaithful woman who violates her vows, even if you haven't realized it for a long time and it only happens once a year while she is away from the nation. I don't think you could live with yourself giving her a whole pass like this, and that's where the problem lies. You may have loved her more than life itself. Perhaps you still do, but what type of life will you have if you abandon yourself? Respect wrong is still incorrect. The younger 2 children are also his." I interrupted. Ella appears to have lost her spirit. She looked exactly how I felt when Joshua told me what he'd heard. While she sat there stunned, I filled the silence. That has not yet been confirmed. I mentioned that I was thinking of giving ancestry DNA tests to all 3 kids for Christmas, so they could find out in approximately 2 months. "No, that's the incorrect way to approach this," she said. "If you do that, everyone will find out about the secret and your chances of retaliation will be slim." The RW. That is why I went to Ella. Like me, she would not take this lying down. I didn't need to see a marriage counselor. I needed someone to hear my side of the story. "You must keep this fully confidential until you are ready to make a move. But if what you're saying me is correct, you may still lose those children, and I know that would break your heart. So whatever you do, and I'm not sure how much you can do, it has to be balanced with your wish to stay the father of those 2 children." She swiftly shifted the subject. "How about during the Christmas break? You gather everyone here for a quick dinner. I'll personally serve everyone's beverages and make sure to take the old glasses from the table and store them in a sealed container. Then you can take the containers to a DNA testing center. I'm confident we'll get DNA from all 5 of you, which is a better and more accurate method in the long run, and at least I receive the equivalent of a dinner from your sorry self." She grinned broadly as she delivered the champ, which helped lighten the situation slightly. Furthermore, she had offered me excellent advice. It was going to be a marathon, not a sprint. "What are you planning to do about intimacy?" she inquired swiftly, changing the subject again. Was she asking me what I assumed she was asking me? No, since she immediately broke into a mischievous smile and remarked, "I don't think you heard that right. I'm not asking whether you want to make love, jackass. I am wondering what you are going to do about Isabella wanting to make love to you as usual. You can't just stop because she'll realize something's wrong. Damn, you are good at this. I hope Michael never gets on your wrong side." I answered, referring to her marriage of approximately 25 years. I hadn't considered it at all. Could make a point. I suppose I'll have to continue making love to her 3 times a week just to keep up appearances, but perhaps to teach her a subtle lesson. I will stop using my thumb, let me repeat idiot. She said frankly, you must continue to interact with her as usual until you are ready to take action. She is not a foolish woman. In fact, she has successfully fooled you for almost 20 years. So you're telling me I should leave the gun? Take the cannoli now, exactly nice Godfather illusion to keep things cool. Do not rush. Of course. That would be easier said than done. You can't unlove someone overnight, no matter how much they've damaged you, but the treachery felt like hydrogen peroxide on an open sore. I believe I was a little quieter than normal around Christmas, and Isabella's family noticed. Fortunately for me, they did not seek explanations from Isabella. Due to our strong friendship, they approached me and inquired whether I had something on my mind or if I was feeling bad. I felt bad about lying to them. I'll miss the kids when Isabella and I split. I am wondering whether I can acquire custody of them. It made me sad to realize that this would be our last Christmas together as a family. I watched the kids do something silly together, and it brought me remember to when they were little. Back then I had no idea these children weren't mine, and I believed I was the luckiest man in the world to have such a brilliant and attractive wife. I wondered if she might turn to Stuart after the divorce. I knew he was married, but would he ditch his wife for my ex, or would she become his full-time mistress? What would my children do if they found out? Will I still be damned, or will I just be dad? So many questions, so few answers. 3 weeks after Christmas, I received my DNA results, which verified what I already knew. Isabella and I shared a child. Emma and Isabella and an unnamed whom I thought to be Ethan Stewart, had children named Noah and MIA. Isabella had a girls' night out the following Thursday after I received the DNA findings, so I took the opportunity to see Great at my house. I gave her the results to review and she handed me a file including 6 divorce attorneys. She had done research for me. Ella assured me that the courts would not treat you unfairly in this divorce. Your children are almost out of the house. Your home is now community property and will be included in the 50/50th settlement. So your main concern should be what you intend to do in terms of vengeance, and whatever you do, don't go overboard and drive the youngsters away. Considering everything, it seems that the greatest option for me to exact retribution was financially. First, I needed to petition for divorce. After that, I planned to sue Johansson for failing to enforce the morals contract which resulted in my divorce. Next, I planned to sue Stuart for child support. The final portion was depending on when my 2 younger children discovered he was their father. They would eventually do so, and I wanted him to pay as much as possible. Not that I intended to keep the money. I planned to divide the settlement in 3 equal parts and establish a trust fund for each of my children. I contacted one of the attorneys Ella recommended for me and got things started. I nearly blew everything. A few months later, on March 23rd, we celebrated our 26th anniversary and I brought the entire family, including Isabella's parents, to one of the greatest restaurants in town, Pascal Long's, for a delicious supper. As we were getting ready for the night out, I saw a small velour bag nestled into the corner of the bottom layer of Isabella's jewelry box. I've bought Isabella a lot of excellent jewelry over the years, but I don't recall anything arriving in a velour bag. I grabbed for the package without thinking, opened the drawing and drew out what appeared to be 2 very costly gold bracelets with various turquoise charms attached. As a finite man, I was able to look at them long enough to notice that one bracelet contained a dozen charms, while the other had 11. Wow, when did you receive these? I asked before I had time to think about it. Isabella looked over flushed scarlet and swiftly removed them from my grasp. It's the old stuff, she stammered. That's just some souvenirs I picked up in Norway over a century ago. She didn't look me in the eyes as she said it, instead swiftly placing them back in the bag and jewelry box. That's when it struck me. Stuart most likely gave them as gifts with a charm added each year to commemorate the week together. She presumably brings them to Norway and wears them for him. That put Isabella on edge for the remainder of the evening. I know the kids noticed it, and I believe all three felt something was wrong. Isabella's vacation to Norway was scheduled between August 14, 21. She was her usual controlled self, and knowing what I know now, I am amazed at her acting abilities in the weeks preceding up to the trip. She appeared unaltered. If I hadn't known the children weren't mine, I'd have assumed the entire tale was made up. She even gave me our regular goodbye kiss on the lips before driving me to the airport in the corporate limo on Sunday morning. My trip to Oslo, Norway was scheduled for later that day. I'd planned a full week of vacation without alerting Isabella, my children or my in-laws. Some things you simply have to see for yourself. I told Ella about my plans throughout our conversation. I arrived late Sunday night, picked up my rental car and proceeded to my hotel, which was conveniently positioned a few blocks from where Johansson was holding corporate meetings and where the Johansson out-of-town guests were staying. On Monday afternoon, I went some sightseeing. Oslo is definitely a stunning city based on the itinerary Isabella showed me. The meetings were scheduled to end by 4:00 p.m. Each day dinner is set for 6:00 p.m. and a few local Johansson representatives. Any of the American attendees could choose to explore the city and eat on their own. The sessions would formally end at midday on Friday, giving the Americans around a day and a half to visit the city. I started hovering around the hotel at 4:00 p.m., knowing Isabella would take some time to change into a casual clothing. I wore sunglasses and a fake beard. Sure that Isabella would never identify me because she never expected to see me in Norway. She appeared from the hotel wearing a sleek, shorter than usual little black dress that I had never seen before. The dress plunged to the center of her 36-inch breasts, emphasizing her gorgeous shape. She wore 3 CFM black heels and a bracelet around each wrist. These bracelets, formerly referred to be antique ornaments in her jewelry collection, were everything, but those items were probably worth about $5,000 each. She got in a business limousine. I couldn't see if that jerk was already in the car, but when they got at the restaurant, he disembarked first and then helped her out. She leaned in and kissed him passionately on the lips before they went inside. I stayed back and ate a couple of yogurt. While I waited for them to resurface, which took approximately 2 hours, they got back in the car and drove to another hotel, perhaps where the jerk was staying. I had no idea if his wife was home, but at least he wasn't bringing Isabella to his house at 5:56 a.m. I had spent an extremely boring night in the rental car, viewing various movies on my iPad. Isabella exited the hotel visibly tired from the night before and boarded the limousine. The jerk did not accompany her. They drove back to the first motel and she entered. That allowed her to shower and change. Before the meeting resumed at 9:00 a.m., I returned to my hotel and was able to get a few hours of restless sleep. Seeing her with him crushed my heart and made me enraged, especially because she had been doing this to me for 24 years. On Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday nights, I followed her to his hotel and spent the evening watching movies from my car. Until she emerged and returned to her hotel by Friday, I was drained and irritated. The meetings concluded at noon, and by 1:30 Isabella was dressed more casually as she boarded the company limousine. Unlike the previous days when just a few of Isabella's co-workers were present, this time a large crowd had formed at the front of the hotel. When she got in the limo, a few heads turned, but no one looked surprised to see Isabella enter the business limo with the suitcase by herself. Either they assumed it was all business or she'd been doing it for so long that no one noticed. On Friday and Saturday I followed them to many locations, then waited in my car drinking coffee and eating yogurt. I tried a few local fast food restaurants in the vicinity, but I liked the yogurt. My clothing were rumpled and wrinkled and I was exhausted and irritable. I felt like the famous television investigator Columbo. It was an excellent approach to gradually let my feelings for Isabella dissipate. Saturday night they hopped in the limo and drove to an out-of-the-way fancy restaurant. Isabella was leaving the next day, so I imagined this was their year-end celebration supper. It was about time to take action. I assumed a man like Stuart had a reservation and would be seated promptly when they arrived. So I waited about 30 minutes before getting out of the car and went into the restaurant, assuming they would have finished their main meal by then. During the night I booked into a nearby hotel to shower and shave. While I waited the 30 minutes, I changed into the suit and tie I'd brought for the occasion. I approached the reservation table, showed them a photo of my wife and asked to be sent to her table. The matter stared at me and my suit noticed the thick manila packet in my palm and led me to Martina's table. When we arrived in front of the table, they both glanced up. Isabella took about 5 seconds to realize she was staring at me, her husband. She burst into tears. Stuart sat there with a puzzled, troubled expression. "Just for the record. Here you go, Isabella," I explained, laying the envelope next to her plate. I quickly grabbed out my cell phone and took numerous shots of her. Stuart and the envelope have a basic touch. These images were emailed to my attorney, my 3 children, Isabella's parents and Ella. By the way, great souvenirs. I'm presuming you have 24 charms now. I turned on my heel and walked away. I heard a lot of bustle and the Norwegian being spoken behind me didn't mind. I turned off my phone too. I drove back to my previous motel and slept the best I had in weeks. My flight from Oslo to home was at 7:00 a.m. I checked out of the motel about 4:00 p.m. local time. I returned the rental car and was at the airport by 5. After almost 12 hours I was back in my lazy boy in Dallas. Isabella's flight wasn't scheduled to arrive for another 3 hours, and if my prediction was correct, she'd probably go to her parents' place for comfort rather than coming home late. As I put my feet up, I turned on my phone again. Apparently I had caused quite a sensation. Isabella specifically was to blame for the commotion. I was only a messenger when everything finished loading. There were 23 voice messages and 16 SMS. Isabella sent 9 messages and 6 texts. I didn't listen to the messages or react to any SMS. I took my time drinking Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey over ice. When I finished, I contacted George out of everyone. I submitted the images to. I felt terrible about sending them to him. He deserved better, but I knew he would not believe me unless he saw the photo. "Dad," I apologized for the first words. I said as soon as he picked up. "I understand that was a cruel way to find out, but there was no other way to inform you." He didn't say anything for about 10 seconds and I assumed he was about to hang up until I heard a sniffle on the other end of the line. He was crying. "I understand, David," he continued, "and I'm the apology. I thought I had raised my kid better than that. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I hope we can stay close after everything between you and my daughter is resolved. You've been such an important part of our life." I heard him weep. He softly hung up the phone. Next I held a conference call with my 3 children. I knew my children were intelligent, but I wasn't prepared for the first salvo which came from Mia, the youngest. "We are not your children, Noah and I," she asked through sobbing baby. "You're all still my kids until one of you 3 nutballs decides otherwise. Who sat up with you while you were sick? Who taught you long division? Who coached your baseball and soccer teams?" We all sobbed a lot during the phone call, but after we hung up, I believe the kids realized I wasn't leaving and that our relationship didn't need to change at all. I did tell them about my plan to get Stuart to pay up and how I planned to split the money 3 ways. Interestingly, we just briefly discussed Isabella and me, and what I gathered from that chat was that the kids knew no more about the affair than I did. At least that was something Isabella never got home that night. My suspicion that she would visit her folks was verified when George called at 10 p.m. I proposed we meet on Monday. I had previously alerted my supervisor about some personal problems I needed to attend to and I doubted Isabella would come to work, so we planned the meeting for 2 p.m. For the time being, she is at home. Isabella and her dad came separately around 2:00 p.m., indicating Isabella intended to spend the night. I offered George and Rose a drink. George and I had Tennessee Honey, while Rose had Diet 7-Up. Isabella did not want to drink. I didn't offer her one, nor did I greet her with a kiss or hug. We all sat in the living room, including George and me, with chairs across from Livia and Rose. There was an awkward stillness as we sipped our drinks before Isabella spoke tentatively. Did you really need to travel all the way to Oslo to deliver me the papers? What if you already knew? Why didn't you just get me served here? She asked. I'd expected an apology. The server question did not impress me. I needed to validate for myself that what I had uncovered was correct for 24 years. The person I thought was my soulmate had an affair once a year. I responded, "Don't use that language," dear Rose interrupted. Yes, mother, I will, and coming here with the delegation exposes you to hard truths. I adore you and Dad, as if you were my own parents, but even if they were present, I would not hold back. Delicacy vanished. The moment your daughter cheated on me and pretended nothing happened. I replied harshly. Have I ever given you a motive to violate my trust during our marriage? I asked Isabella, turning to face her. As I focused on Isabella, I noticed George frowning and waving for Rose to keep silent. It seems that I would not encounter any more disruptions for her. I glared at my wife, who shifted uneasily on the sofa. No, David, you never gave me any reason to betray you the way I did. I sincerely apologize. Isabella replied. So why did you continue for so long? If you wanted Stuart, why didn't you tell me? But instead you made a mockery of me. For 24 years, I trailed off in rage. I do not want Ethan. I want you, David. You're the one I want to spend my life with. Isabella began, the father of my children. Stop right there. I yelled. There are two of them. Aren't my children biologically unrelated? How dare you betrayed me and had two children with him, rubbing it in my face. You have an unusual way of expressing love. I continued, fuming with rage. Isabella looked shocked that I was aware of Noah and Emi's paternity, as she had not communicated with the children in a while. Furthermore, she appears to have not notified her parents, as they are both astonished. I thought I heard Rose start crying, but I focused on Isabella. You not only betrayed me, but also disrespected me by asking me to raise another man's children. I accused, just so you know. The children already know. I did not tell them, they realized it from a snapshot, just like I did. I only validated their suspicions. I stated. Isabella lowered her head, shielding her face from me but murmuring, oh no, as Isabella continued to mutter to herself. I used the opportunity to indicate George for a refill, which he accepted with a nod. His countenance when he returned with the beverages revealed a sense of devastation. Isabella appeared more composed and instantly started explaining her case. Sweetie, we can get past this. Ethan was only a once-a-year indulgence from far away. I never took away your feelings for him, and if you hadn't found out you'd have assumed I was your soulmate, which I am. Cannot go back to that. She implored. Are you taking me for a fool? I replied harshly. Some things cannot be undone or hidden. Your choices have devastated us. Would you forgive Rose if she treated you the way Isabella treated me? Honestly, David, I wouldn't. George acknowledged there. You have it, Isabella. That is not an option. I stated strongly. Maybe one day I'll be able to overcome my love for you, but I am not sure if I will ever be able to transcend the hatred. I need to excuse myself immediately. I'll seek refuge in a bar where I once respected Isabella. You should gather your belongings and stay with your folks. You will not be staying here. I directed George. Rose. I apologized for the abruptness. I concluded the conversation by saying, you know I care for you. I didn't have to care more. Fossards. While getting my auto keys and phone, I made my way to my destination. Isabella contested the divorce, causing me to utilize a morality clause against her Hansen for their part in the breakdown of our marriage. 3 days later, a repentant Isabella decided to sign the divorce papers after being fired for reason in endangering her chances of landing another high-paying work. I understand, David. She accepted that there was no need to damage my life anymore. Fortunately, karma immediately took care of it for me. After letting go of Isabella, Johansson had to fire Ethan, making quite a controversy in the industry. It was unusual for the son of a well-known financial services CEO to be fired by his own company, particularly for having an affair with a subordinate. Mrs. Ethan Stewart was clearly upset by the incident, which threatened her social status, and she was uninformed of her husband's previous relationships. She reportedly reacted angrily when the news broke, causing damage to their lavish Oslo home before filing for divorce. His termination is awaiting divorce, and there's a tabloid frenzy across Europe. Stewart rose to prominence in the news. According to reports, he spent a week each year in corporate meetings with a Johansson employee from the London office. Despite understanding his married status, she objected to Stewart's repeated affairs. In the midst of a scandal, Stewart's wife requested child support reimbursement, prompting subsequent claims from 2 other women in Germany and Poland. The issue was widely covered by the media, revealing Stewart's infidelity and the aftermath with his outraged wife. Isabella was just one of several women engaged with Martinez, which resulted in a large number of children born outside of his marriage. Attempting to shift blame. Stewart sued Johansson for harassment, claiming that a company official pushed her into a relationship. However, a Norwegian court dismissed his claims, citing the fact that their affair produced 2 children and that their relationship was voluntary. The scandal of female adultery, divorces and children from extramarital affairs with deceived husbands drew the attention of the American press. Newspapers and publications sensationalized the tale, causing unwanted attention and furtive glances from everyone involved, who were uncomfortable with the public focus. I retreated from social activities and became a recluse for almost 3 months, only going out for necessary errands. Initially, the children appeared to handle the situation well, most likely because they were aware, with the digital age's lack of privacy. However, 2 weeks later, MIA reached out to me in tears, attempting to come to terms with her mother's infidelity, which had become public knowledge. I reassured her that it was her mother's problem, not hers, and that she should not feel responsible or apologize for her mother's behavior. Sophia turned to me for comfort and counsel during this tough time, was a bright spot in the middle of the chaos. Meanwhile, George revealed that Isabella had become a recluse, rarely leaving his house and incurring criticism for her conduct on social media. Following Isabella's agreement to divorce, we divided our assets equally. In the absence of Isabella's income, I financed Noah and MIA's remaining education fees with a significant payoff from Ethan Stewart. I divided the remaining monies to her children and obtained a hefty compensation from Johansson to settle my legal battle with them outside of court. This enabled me to invest in a new home in a dynamic Dallas neighborhood with a share of the settlement and revenues from the sale of our property, while I considered moving to another city to avoid the judgment and rumors. A sincere talk with MIA inspired me to follow my own advice and live my life without worrying about what others thought of my ex-wife's conduct. Although the hurt lingered, it was time to move on and begin a new chapter in my life. Walking my younger daughter down the aisle at her wedding was a source of great delight, a huge milestone 6 years after the divorce. Despite learning that my 2 youngest children were not biologically mine, my bond with each of my children remained strong. Noah and MIA's unconditional love and acceptance of their father really affected me. They never wavered in their regard for me, preferring to keep our tight friendship. Even after discovering the truth about their fatherhood, they did not contact their biological father, Ethan, and he made no attempts to contact them, a setting that suited me perfectly. MIA, who suffered the brunt of her mother's infidelity, had a difficult time absorbing the betrayal and the existence of her half-siblings. I paid for her counseling sessions until she felt confident in her ability to cope independently. In contrast, Noah displayed incredible resiliency, exemplifying the concept of nurture over nature. Although he does not resemble me physically, I perceive a profound relationship between us that goes beyond bloodlines. Over time, all 3 of my children found peace with their mother, Isabella, for their mental health. I refrained from commenting on her actions. Instead, I chose to confide in Ella when I needed an outlet aside from required contact such as the wedding. My connection with Isabella was limited, while the grief and wrath persist. My affections for her have steadily diminished throughout the ceremony. I kept my distance from Isabella and only interacted with her when absolutely necessary. Though we stood together for family photos, there was a tangible emotional divide between us that was obvious even in the happy times. Isabella failed to provide a satisfactory explanation or a real apology when she returned home following an initial attempt to confront the affair. It appears she never meant to admit her infidelity, assuming she would never be discovered. The finding of her treason was completely unintentional. Even if she regarded the encounter as a momentary diversion, her genuine motives were called into question. The fact that she had 2 children with her lover remained a perplexing riddle. Months later, during an honest talk over Tennessee Honey Whiskey, George verified my assumptions regarding Isabella's feelings for her partner. Following my stern rejection, she found refuge in Stuart, only to be rejected and revealed to have 3 mistresses. Even Rose admitted that Isabella looks dumb duped by a wealthy partner. At 51, I had misgivings about finding another life partner. I was skeptical of trusting another woman as much as Isabella. The lingering shadow of betrayal raises doubts about whether remaining ignorant would have been a less painful option. Real reality frequently lacks the fairy tale endings we crave, with bits of conversation overheard in airport layovers replacing ideal images of puppy dogs and rainbows. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.